Algebra Chapter 1, Lesson 3. We want to wrap this lesson up by looking at how we can evaluate these expressions now that have exponents in them, or evaluating these exponential expressions. And really, this does not entail anything new. It's just simply applying what we already know and then working with exponents. And so the two things you have to remember from previous lessons is, remember, we need to continue to always work using our order of operations. And remember, we've talked about PEMDAS, doing parentheses or grouping symbols first, then exponents. That's the focus of this lesson. So we're going to have exponents to do, and then after we've done the exponents, then we can multiply and divide from left to right and add and subtract from left to right. Make sure we can multiply and divide working our way across. We can add and subtract working our way across from left to right, but we cannot multiply and then add and then divide and then subtract or something like that. Okay? Cannot be done at the same time. The second thing that we talked about were some tips to evaluating, or some things that we don't want to do when we're evaluating. We talked specifically about how to make sure that we don't lose a negative sign. And remember, we are going to do that by rewriting the expression, and we're going to replace each variable in the expression with a parentheses. Then we're going to go back and put in the value that they give us, and then once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and simplify that expression using our order of operations. So it's a combining of those two lessons along with what we now know about exponents, and that's what we're going to do when we evaluate these expressions. So let's take a look at a couple of examples before we wrap this up. So in the first example here, it asks us to evaluate x cubed, or x to the third power, plus 2 for x is 4. So the first step, remember, we're going to go through and we're going to rewrite this expression, and for every letter we're going to use a parentheses instead. So we have an x cubed plus 2. Now that we've rewritten that, we're going to go back and substitute now in for every parentheses. We're going to put in the value for the variable that they give us, so 4. So I have 4 cubed plus 2, and now it's simply a matter of applying order of operations. There's nothing more within the parentheses to simplify, so I've done parentheses. Now I do my exponents. So remember, 4 cubed, I'm going to write this out this time just so you see it. You don't have to necessarily. That means 4 times 4 times 4 plus 2. Now remember, I can't add this 4 and 2 because that's not the order of operations. I need to work from left to right now, doing my multiplication and division. So I can multiply 4 times 4 is 16, and then 16 times 4 is 64. So that gives me 64 plus 2. All my multiplication is done and division is done. Now I can go from left to right and add and subtract as I move across. So 64 plus 2 is 66. So if I evaluate x cubed plus 2 for an x value of 4, I get an answer of 66. Okay? Let's do this next one because it involves that little error thing that I wanted to make sure that didn't happen to us. So let's make sure see what we can do this without it happening to us. Now, the exponent is next to the parentheses, okay? So that means this expression is actually 2ab, that's one parentheses, 2ab, that's a second parentheses, 2ab, that's a third parentheses. So this is actually the expanded version of this. Now I still have some variables, so I'm going to go through and rewrite parentheses for each of these variables. Now you can either continue to use parentheses, or what I like to do is, if I have parentheses to begin with, I want to alternate between parentheses and brackets. So because these are parentheses, I'm going to use parentheses, on the inside. I'm going to change this to a bracket. It's still a grouping symbol, so it doesn't matter. So I have 2, and then I have an A and a B, okay? And then I repeat that for this next one, a 2 with an A and a B, and then a 2 with an A and a B. Okay, so I've rewritten the expression and I've used parentheses for each of the variables. Let me move this up just a little bit here. Now I'm going to go back and replace, or substitute into each of the parentheses these appropriate letters. Now remember, one of these parentheses represents the letter A and one represents the letter B, so I need to make sure that I only put the A value of 2 into the A parentheses. As I work my way across, we have 2A, and A is 2, and then B, and B is 4. And then when I go in here, this is 2A again, and this is B, that's a 4. 2A, and then this is 2B. Okay? So I've gone through now and I've substituted in. Now I'm going to use PEMDAS. And PEMDAS says I need to work within the parentheses first. So inside this grouping symbol, I have this multiplication, so I can go ahead and do all my multiplication. So 2 times 2 is 4, and 4 times 4 is 16, so this is going to be a 16. Times, now these are all the same, so this is going to be another 16, and then this is going to be another 16. So again, these are just grouping symbols, and because there's no other symbol in between these, now this is multiplication. So this is 16 times 16 times 16. Alright, now that's not 16 times 3, it's 16 times 16 times 16. Okay, so we're going to have to maybe do a little calculating here. I know that 16 times 16 is 256, so that's 16 squared. And then I have that times 16. And then 256 times 16 is going to be 4,096. Okay? So, again, we want to go back and make sure we rewrite the expression using parentheses. Then substitute in. That helps us avoid losing the negative signs. And again, we haven't dealt with negatives, but we will in the future. And then be careful that the exponent applies to the symbol that it's next to. And then if you want to swap out these parentheses for brackets, because you're going to be rewriting more parentheses, you can do that. Or you can continue to write parentheses. You're just going to have to be careful to keep track of which pair goes together. Okay, so that's evaluating an exponential expression. Really nothing different, nothing new. It's what we worked on in lessons 1 and 2. We're just going to have a lot more exponents to deal with than maybe we have in the past.